Hello, everyone. I'm Sudha Kailas, an integrative physician coming to you from my office in Santa Fe, New Mexico. During this time of increasing fear, uncertainty, and frustration, I'm starting this YouTube channel as a way forward into creativity, spaciousness, and harmony. As we are entering times of increasingly rapid change and turbulence, I'm here to remind us of our humanity, our roots in service to one another, the way that the natural world serves unto itself. Now, before I get into who I am and why I'd like to share on this topic, I'd like to dedicate this channel to my two mothers. First, my human mother, my birth mother, Shobha Kailas, an extraordinary woman of incredible strength to whom I owe my entire life. And second, I dedicate this channel to the city of New Orleans. Both mothers have shown me the way through fear and into the courageous creativity of my heart. New Orleans truly raised me. My friends and their families, schools and teachers, oak-lined city streets and deep, soulful music, the colorful homes, and the fragrance of gardenias and night-blooming jasmine wafting from their gardens into the nearby cemeteries. This year marks 20 years since Hurricane Katrina, the storm that changed everything. The landscape of New Orleans, the fabric of my family, life as I knew it, and my entire understanding of the world. Before Katrina, I was extremely ambitious and deeply rooted in science, with unwavering faith in the larger systems of society. So much so that I was a huge skeptic of my parents' Indian ideologies, religion, and spirituality. I was a young woman, naive perhaps, but from a very young age I excelled in school, and that was important to my immigrant parents. I was 5 years old when I knew I wanted to be a doctor, a pediatrician, in fact. And from that moment forward, I dedicated myself to that path, taking every necessary step, passing every exam, and completing all the education and training required to become a physician. In 2005, when Hurricane Katrina struck on August 29th, I was in the final stages of my MD PhD training at Tulane University School of Medicine. I was just beginning my final year of medical school, while also completing my PhD dissertation in neuroscience. I will never forget that evening or the days that followed, especially the week after the storm when the floodwaters consumed the bowl that is New Orleans. The story of my pain, my family's pain, and the pain of my neighbors, friends, and the entire community of New Orleans is one for the books. And I bring it up to you now to let you know that I understand pain. I understand tragedy and loss, and I understand trauma. I lived it. I moved through it, and I came out on the other side. So right now, I want to focus on gratitude. Gratitude for Katrina, gratitude for the storm, and gratitude even for the suffering. Because without that life-altering event, I would never have taken the risks that led me to uncover the root, the core, the very foundation of what I now understand as healing. Without the tragedy of that storm that occurred 20 years ago now, I would not be in a position to truly serve through the tragedies we are facing today. And for that, I am truly grateful. Those moments, those days shattered my perception of reality. In just 1 week after the storm, my awareness expanded in such a way that I saw the world for what it truly is. I came to understand the fractures in my previous perceptions and to decipher the thin veneer that veils us from the reality. Many of you understand this, and perhaps that's why you're here with me. This journey that's granted this expansion of my awareness, beginning with Katrina, is what has led me here to you today to share my story. And as a message to you, Ma, this is why I dedicate my life's work to you. I hope it gives you some understanding as to why we had to move through life in the ways that we did, why we suffered so much loss, and even after all you endured in building that beautiful life that you made for us, I hear our ancestors now, and I heed their call. Jai Shri Mata. In those months after Katrina, I began to listen more deeply, focusing on the solutions that were coming through to me in newfound clarity. There was a voice a thought, a thread, something deep and something beyond me, something that I had never heard before. And it was about integration. I had never had to study much in medical school. I sat in the back of class and listened. I took notes, and that ensured that the material was with me. And sometime during the first couple years of school, I heard my ancestors say to me, "Well, you've always been a healer. You know about medicine. And in this lifetime, you will truly learn to heal." Being in my early 20s at the time, I didn't think much of it, except that it affirmed I was in the right place, especially when I had those doubts and working through some of the strangeness of those systems. At that point in my career, I was deciding which residency to apply for. I had always known I wanted to be a pediatrician, but in those moments, something about psychiatry pulled me in. I had just started a child psychiatry rotation the week prior to the storm, and after Katrina hit, my family relocated to Baton Rouge, where I found much of that same child psychiatry team working in relief shelters set up across the city. Through our efforts with the Red Cross, we were helping people meet their most basic needs: triage for medical care, clean water, food and resources, help in being reunited with loved ones who were lost in the evacuation. And as days went on, in a city also bereft of electricity, charging cell phones, cleaning soiled linens, and securing transportation became of utmost importance. We listened to the stories of people who had never before needed a handout, people who were ashamed of the position the storm had put them in. And at the same time, we were ensuring that infants had access to water. Because without us walking through those crowds, reaching out and introducing ourselves, many people didn't even realize help was available. And yes, people were dying. Infants were dying of thirst and malnutrition, and others from a lack of proper medical attention. So I'm here with you today, introducing myself to share with you what I have learned in the past 20 years since Hurricane Katrina. Dr. Neil Boris, the child psychiatry attending leading us in Baton Rouge, introduced me to a specialized program called the Triple Board Training, a unique residency that combines pediatrics with adult psychiatry and child and adolescent psychiatry into one rigorous program. It was essentially two residencies and a fellowship merged into a single path. The moment I learned about it, I was filled with excitement. But there were only 10 schools in the entire country offering this program, each with only 2 seats. That meant just 20 positions nationwide. So yes, I was stunned when I was accepted to my number one choice at Mount Sinai in Manhattan. That 5-year training program was some of the most grueling work I have ever endured on every level: psychological, physical, intellectual, and spiritual. From the very beginning, I questioned everything. That voice, my intuition, was telling me there was more to learn in this world. Because of the awareness that had opened through the events of Katrina in the year before, my consciousness had shifted, and I had been open to the wisdom of my ancestry. It was during that time that my paternal lineage came to me. My grandmother had been an Ayurvedic practitioner in India, yet I had grown up completely unaware of this lineage, unaware of this word. My family were mainly business people. My parents immigrated to the US in the 1970s, and I was born outside New Orleans in the late 1970s, disconnected completely from this ancestral wisdom. These are the tragedies of colonization. While no one in my family even mentioned the word Ayurveda while I was growing up, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar had a program on PBS, and yoga was taking the world by storm. So what came to me, what I received, what I experienced through yoga was the medicine of sound, mantra. And in great salutations and thanks to my first yoga teacher, Sean Johnson. Hari Om. These songs, along with the movement practices, allowed me to move and release the pain and suffering through my body. And not just my own pain, but that of my family, my city, and all that had endured. Because being able to clear myself of my own sadness allowed me to be present for my friends who were struggling even more than I was, to be there for my family, who, despite their ability to aid the community, were still in deep suffering from their own losses. When I inevitably moved to New York, I began the final steps to becoming a full-fledged physician, my residency training. The first year dedicated entirely to pediatrics. I remember sitting in my Fifth Avenue apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan on a cold and snowy weekend, completely devastated by the healthcare I was witnessing. I was caring for children battling cancer, recovering from transplants, and enduring post-operative struggles. Yet the care we provided often felt painfully inadequate. What struck me most was the food placed on their trays. The very thing meant to nourish them in their most vulnerable state was cold and wrapped in plastic. It was as if no one considered the role of nutrition in healing. These children inspired me beyond belief as some of my greatest teachers, but at times I couldn't shake the feeling that they were being treated like an experiment, subjected to protocols that in some cases felt more like suffering than care. That winter weekend, I sat in stillness, what I would now call meditation, though at the time I had no formal practice. I simply sat in silence, my body exhausted. And in that spaciousness, I connected to something beyond the walls of my apartment and beyond the city itself. I was sitting within the cosmos, and then something came to me, a thought, a thread of inspiration. Wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a system of yoga medicine? The thought kept returning to me, washing over me like a wave. Yoga medicine, yoga medicine, yoga medicine, until finally I was pulled out of my seat and drawn to my computer. It was 2006, and I typed those words into Google. What appeared before me was the word Ayurveda, a term I'd never encountered before. Two book recommendations popped up by doctors Vasant Lad and David Frawley, and without hesitation, I ordered both. I devoured those books immediately, every word affirming what had already been stirring inside of me. It was as if my lineage was speaking through them and through me. I began to rigorously implement the principles of Ayurveda in my own life, and as I experienced the results, a sense of groundedness, peace, direction, vitality, along with a deep sense of hope and inspiration, I realized A, I had to find and meet these teachers, and B, I had to share this knowledge. In my weekly pediatric clinic, I introduced Ayurvedic principles to my patients, and to my surprise, I had the support of my supervisors, Doctors Scott Barnett and Neeta Vanjipuram. Dr. Vanjipuram, another woman of Indian descent, didn't personally know much about Ayurveda, but she knew it existed. She knew it was real and recognized it having an inherently helpful value. So she encouraged my efforts, particularly in guiding patients through the power of food as medicine. Most of the children I worked with on the Upper East Side came from Puerto Rican and African American communities. Their mothers, like so many parents, didn't want to rely solely on medications or endless courses of antibiotics. Now remember, this was back in the late 2000s, over 15 years ago, and they were open. These mothers wanted alternatives. They wanted something familiar to their own roots, something natural, their grandmother's medicine. And in Ayurveda, I had found alternate possibilities to offer them. Here I was, training in one of the most prestigious hospitals in Manhattan, learning by day the tools, techniques, and methodologies of modern science, yet at night I would return home to immerse myself in the study and practice of yoga and Ayurveda. My community in Manhattan consisted mostly of yogis, people I still cherish to this day. And as I navigated these two worlds, my residency program also required me to move between those three departments: psychiatry, pediatrics, and child psychiatry. So, like a skilled artisan, I began weaving together these diverse disciplines, creating a tapestry of knowledge and experience that would ultimately shape my life's work. Every moment given for vacation was devoted to the study and practice of yoga and Ayurveda. I explored the studios and teachers of the Big Apple and traveled to various program sites and conferences around the US in search of teachings. I also enrolled in treatment at some of the best Ayurvedic facilities in India. As a healthy woman in my late 20s, the treatments offered me something I could not have expected. They expanded my consciousness and opened my awareness into realms unimaginable. The fabric of our world was literally rippling. Now, near the ocean and on the shores of the Ganga, the sensory expansion was profoundly noticeable. I could feel my heart, I could feel my womb. And once I returned to the concrete jungle of Manhattan, I could feel my own porosity, the subtleness of my being, and at times even those hospital walls were moving. Through this incredible journey filled with mind-blowing experiences, I somehow found myself drawn to those who'd been alienated by modern medical systems. Patients who, despite their financial resources, time, and relentless efforts to heal, had been failed by the very institutions meant to help them. I wanted to understand if there were alternate systems that were bridging this gap, so I continued my exploration in India, researching educational models and integrative health systems. And after completing my training in New York, I relocated to Santa Fe to deepen that knowledge in Ayurveda that I knew was waiting for me. Determined to create a way forward that did not presently exist within those systems at the time, those systems that continue to over-medicate and over-prescribe, I opened a private practice, integrating the modern treatment practices of psychiatry and pediatrics with the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda. And this is where my journey of integration and healing truly began. It's been over a decade since I opened my doors in 2012, and I've had the honor of serving and learning from thousands of patients over that time. It has been hard work requiring deep integrity, patience, and persistence. And I now know there are ways to heal, to truly feel alive in everything that it means to be alive, only if we are courageous enough to experience it. This is just the beginning of my tale, and if you'd like to learn more or book a consultation, please click on the link below. And of course, if you like this video and want to stay connected, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you all in the future. I'm so grateful to you for being here. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. Together we will find a way forward. We will find a way together in service to one another, in harmony with the world around us. I look forward to seeing you in the future.